Hello everyone, and welcome. My name is Linda, and I'm so happy you are here to practice your English with me today. In this document, you will find the full script for an English learning podcast. The episode is called The Secret Unlocked: How Reading Transforms Your English. 1. It's a really interesting conversation between the two hosts, David and Lara too. They talk about why reading is such a great way to improve your vocabulary and grammar. As you read the script, notice the useful phrases and new words. This is a great way to learn. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Master English, the podcast that helps you take your English skills to the next level. I'm your host, David.
And I'm your co-host, Lara. It's great to be with you all today. We have a fantastic topic, one that I am personally very passionate about.
That's right, Lara. Today, we're talking about something that can feel like a superpower for English learners. It's a tool that builds your vocabulary, perfects your grammar, and opens up new worlds, all at the same time. We are talking about the power of reading.
Exactly. It's not just about textbooks and boring exercises. We're talking about getting lost in a good story, learning from an interesting article, or even just scrolling through your favorite blog. David, do you remember when you were learning Spanish? How important was reading for you?
Oh, it was a game changer. At first, I was just focused on speaking and listening, but when I started reading, even simple children's books, I noticed my vocabulary and my understanding of sentence structure just exploded. It was like connecting the dots.
I had the same experience with French. It's this quiet, personal activity that has massive results. So, in today's episode, we're going to break it all down. We'll discuss why reading is so effective, give you practical tips and tricks to get started, and, my favorite part, we'll share inspiring stories from learners all over the world.
So, grab a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and let's unlock the power of reading together. All right, Lara, let's start with the big question. When a learner asks, why should I spend my time reading? Shouldn't I just be speaking more? What's the first thing you tell them?
That's a great question, and it's one we hear a lot. My first answer is always about vocabulary acquisition in context. When you learn a word from a list, like apple equals a fruit, you only know its basic meaning. But when you read a sentence like, she took a crisp red apple from the bowl and polished it on her sleeve, you learn so much more.
You're so right. You learn that apples can be crisp and red. You see the verb polished. You understand the word in a real situation. Your brain doesn't just learn the word, it learns the world around the word. This is how you move from knowing a word to actually being able to use it naturally.
Exactly. And the second huge benefit is natural grammar absorption. I think many B1 and B2 learners get tired of grammar rules and exceptions. Reading is the solution. You see grammar in action. You see how prepositions are used, how tenses flow in a story, and how complex sentences are built, all without opening a grammar book.
It's like learning by osmosis. Osmosis is a scientific term, but here it means you absorb it naturally, without conscious effort. For example, you might struggle with when to use the present perfect tense, like I have seen, versus the simple past, I saw. But after reading a few chapters of a novel, you start to get a feel for it because you've seen it used correctly dozens of times. Your brain recognizes the pattern.
A perfect example. And that leads to my third point, improving your writing skills. Good readers almost always become better writers. When you read, you are constantly exposed to different styles, sentence structures, and ways of expressing ideas. This gives you a bigger toolbox when it's your turn to write an email, an essay, or even just a social media post.
It's like a chef tasting many different dishes to get inspiration. You can't create interesting writing if you've only ever consumed simple, basic sentences. Reading a well-written article, for example, can teach you how to use transition words like however, consequently, or furthermore correctly.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the cultural aspect. Reading gives you cultural insights. If you read a novel set in London, you learn about the tube, the way people talk about the weather, or the tradition of Sunday roast. If you read a news article from the New York Times, you get a sense of American culture and current events. It's a window into the soul of English-speaking countries.
A window into the soul. I love that, Lara. It makes the language feel alive, not just like a subject you study in school. So, to summarize our why section, reading gives you vocabulary and context, helps you absorb grammar naturally, improves your writing, and offers deep cultural insights.
It's a full-body workout for your English brain.
Okay, so we've convinced our listeners that reading is amazing, but how do they do it effectively? It can be intimidating to pick up a book in a foreign language. Where does someone start?
This is the most important part. The key is to start smart. My number one tip is choose the right material for your level and interests. This is crucial. If you try to read something too difficult, you will get frustrated and quit. If you read something you don't care about, you will get bored and quit.
So true. Let's break that down. First, level. A great place to start for B1, B2 learners is with graded readers. Laura, can you explain what those are?
I'd love to. Graded readers are books that have been adapted for language learners. They use a limited set of vocabulary and simpler grammar for each level. For example, a level B1 reader might only use 1,500 different headwords. So you can read a famous story like Dracula or Pride and Prejudice, but in a version you can actually understand and enjoy. This builds confidence like nothing else.
They are fantastic. You can find them from publishers like Penguin, Oxford, and Cambridge, but what about beyond graded readers?
Once you feel more confident, you can move on to authentic materials. But still, choose wisely. If you love sports, read sports articles on websites like ESPN or BBC Sport. If you're into technology, read blogs like TechCrunch or Wired. If you like cooking, find recipes and food blogs in English. Young adult YA novels are also a great next step. They often deal with interesting themes, but are written in more accessible language than classic literature. Think of books like The Hunger Games or Harry Potter.
The message here is clear. Read what you love. If you force yourself to read business reports but you hate business, it's not going to work. Learning should be connected to joy.
Exactly. Which brings us to tip number 2. Understand the difference between intensive and extensive reading. This sounds academic, but it's a very simple and powerful idea. Intensive reading is when you read a short text very carefully. You look up every word you don't know. You analyze the grammar. You want to understand 100% of it. You might do this with a difficult news article or a paragraph from a textbook. It's a deep study.
And extensive reading is the opposite. This is when you read a lot of easier material for pleasure. The goal is not to understand every single word. The goal is to understand the general meaning and just enjoy the flow. This is what you do with a graded reader or an easy novel.
Most learners only do intensive reading, and that's why they get tired. You need a balance. My advice is to do mostly extensive reading for enjoyment and maybe 1 or 2 short intensive reading sessions per week.
That's a brilliant tip. Takes the pressure off. And it leads perfectly into our third tip. Don't look up every word. When you are reading extensively, if you stop for every new word, you will lose the story's rhythm and your motivation.
So, what should you do instead? Try to guess the meaning from the context. Look at the words around it. Is the general feeling of the sentence positive or negative? If you see a word 3 or 4 times and you still can't guess it, and you feel it's important for the story, then you can look it up.
A good rule of thumb I use is the rule of 5. If I find more than 5 words on a page that I don't know and can't guess, the book is probably too difficult for extensive reading right now. I should choose an easier one.
Great rule. Okay, tip number 4. Keep a vocabulary notebook or use an app. When you do look up a word, don't just forget it, write it down. But don't just write the word and its translation.
Yes! Write the whole sentence you found it in. This gives you the context. So if you find the word reluctant, don't just write reluctant equals unwilling. Write, he was reluctant to join the meeting because he was not prepared. This is so much more powerful for your memory.
You can use a physical notebook or an app like Anki or Quizlet, which uses spaced repetition to help you remember the words. Technology can be your best friend here. E-readers like a Kindle are amazing because you can just tap on a word to get its definition instantly. It makes the process so smooth.
Final tip from me, and it might sound strange, read aloud. Just for a few minutes each day. Reading aloud connects the visual shape of the words to the physical act of speaking them. It improves your pronunciation, your rhythm, and your intonation.
Oh, I love that one. It makes you slow down and notice things you might miss when reading silently. It's especially good for practicing difficult sounds.
So, a quick recap of our tips. 1. Choose material at your level and that you find interesting. 2. Balance extensive for fun and intensive for study, reading. 3. Don't look up every single word, use context. 4. Keep a vocabulary journal with full sentences. 5. Read aloud to improve pronunciation.
If our listeners just follow those tips, they will see a huge difference in their learning journey.
Welcome back to Let's Master English. In this segment, we want to move from theory to reality. We reached out to our community of listeners and asked them to share how reading has changed their English. The responses were incredible.
They really were. We're going to share a few of them with you now to show you that no matter where you are or what your goals are, reading can help. Our first story comes from Marco, a university student in Rome, Italy.
Marco is studying engineering and needs to read academic papers in English. He was really struggling. Here's what he told us. Let's imagine Marco's voice.
At first, I only read my engineering textbooks. It was so slow and difficult. I felt stupid. Every sentence was a challenge. My professor told me, "Marco, you don't have a problem with engineering. You have a problem with academic English." He suggested I start reading articles on popular science websites like New Scientist or even the science section of the BBC News. It was still challenging, but it was much more interesting. I started reading about space exploration and new technologies. Slowly, my brain got used to the style. Now, when I read an academic paper, it's still hard, but it's not impossible. Reading about things I was curious about built a bridge for me.
What a great story. Marco found a bridge between his interests and his needs. He didn't just jump into the deep end, he found a way to walk in slowly. That's so smart.
It really is. Our next story takes us to the other side of the world, to Yuki, an office worker in Osaka, Japan. Her goal was different. She didn't need English for work, but she wanted to travel and watch movies without subtitles.
Yuki's story is all about finding joy. Here's a piece of her email to us.
For me, studying was always stressful. I tried grammar apps, I tried flashcards. I always quit after a few weeks. One day, a friend gave me a graded reader. It was a simple detective story, level B1. I thought, okay, I will try. I started reading on the train to work, and I loved it. I wanted to know who the killer was. I finished the book in 3 days. I felt so proud. I didn't feel like I was studying, I felt like I was having fun. I have now read over 30 books, from graded readers to the first Harry Potter book. My reading speed has improved, and my listening is better too because my brain now recognizes words much faster. My advice is, find a story you can't put down.
Find a story you can't put down. That is golden advice. It shows that motivation doesn't have to come from discipline. It can come from curiosity and enjoyment.
Absolutely, and it works for professional goals too. Let's go to Cairo, Egypt, and hear from Fatima, a marketing manager.
Fatima needed to improve her business English to communicate with international clients. Textbooks felt outdated. In my field, marketing, things change every day. The language changes too. Textbooks can't keep up. So I started a new routine. Every morning, for 20 minutes, while I have my coffee, I read articles on LinkedIn from marketing leaders. I follow blogs like HubSpot and Marketing Week. At first, I had to look up many words like lead generation, conversion rate, customer journey. I kept a special notebook just for business vocabulary. After about 2 months, I was in a video call with a client from the UK. He used the term pain points, and I knew exactly what he meant because I had read it in an article the week before. I felt so confident. Reading real-world material gave me real-world language.
That's such a practical and effective strategy. She integrated learning into her daily professional life. It's targeted, relevant, and consistent.
Exactly. One final story, because I think it will resonate with many of our younger listeners. This is from Carlos, a 17-year-old from Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Carlos is a huge fan of video games and comic books. My English teachers at school always wanted me to read classic novels. I was so bored. I love fantasy and action. My parents don't speak English, but they bought me an English version of a comic book I loved. Because I already knew the story from the Portuguese version, it was easier to understand the English. I could focus on the words and the slang. Then I started playing my favorite online video games, but I changed the language setting to English. I had to read the instructions, the character descriptions, and the chat from other players. People think games are a waste of time, but I have learned so much vocabulary from them. Words like quest, armor, strategy, and to defeat. Now I read online forums where gamers discuss strategies. It's my English for my world.
I love that. My English for my world. It perfectly summarizes our main message. It doesn't matter if you're reading Shakespeare or a video game forum. If you're reading in English and you're engaged, you are learning.
Thank you so much to Marco, Yuki, Fatima, and Carlos for sharing their stories. We hope they inspire all of you to find your own reading path.
All right, we've heard the success stories, but we also need to be realistic. Learning to read comfortably in a new language is a journey, and there will be challenges. Lara, what's the #1 problem you see learners face?
I think the biggest one is feeling overwhelmed and not understanding everything. Learners open a book, they don't understand the first paragraph, and they think, "This is too hard for me," and they close it. This fear of not understanding 100% can paralyze you.
It's the perfectionist mindset. So, what's the solution?
You have to change your goal. Your goal is not to understand every word. Your goal is to understand the main idea. You have to be comfortable with a little bit of ambiguity, a little bit of not knowing. This is a skill in itself. Remember extensive reading? It's about getting the gist, the general feeling. It's okay if you miss a few details. The more you read, the smaller those gaps in your understanding will become.
I agree completely. Be kind to yourself. Another big challenge is boredom and lack of motivation. Like Carlos's story, if you're not interested, it feels like a punishment.
The solution here is to treat it like dating. You have to find the one. Don't be afraid to break up with a book. If you have read 2 chapters and you are not enjoying it, stop. Put it down. There are millions of other books and articles in the world. Life is too short to read boring books, especially when you are learning a language.
A great point. Don't feel guilty about stopping. Try a different genre, a different author, a different format. Maybe you prefer nonfiction to fiction. Maybe you prefer short articles to long books. Experiment.
Another common problem is I don't have time. People are busy with work, family, and studies. It's hard to find an hour to sit down and read.
The solution to the no time problem is to think in small pockets of time. You don't need an hour. Can you find 15 minutes? Read on the bus or train during your commute. Read while you're waiting for a friend. Read for 10 minutes before you go to sleep instead of scrolling on your phone. Listen to an audiobook while you're doing housework or exercising. That's reading with your ears.
Those small pockets of time add up. 15 minutes a day is almost 2 hours a week. In a month, that's 8 hours of reading. You can finish a whole book in that time. The key is consistency, not quantity. A little bit every day is much better than 2 hours on a Sunday.
And the final challenge, feeling like you're not making progress. You've been reading for a month, but you still feel like your English is the same.
This is a tough one because progress isn't always visible day to day. My advice is to find a way to see your progress. Keep a log of what you've read. Looking back at a list of 5 books you've finished is incredibly motivating. Go back and reread the first chapter of a book you read 3 months ago. You will be amazed at how much easier it feels now. Pay attention to those little moments of victory, like when you understand a word in a movie without subtitles because you read it in a book. Celebrate those small wins.
Fantastic advice, Lara. So, to recap our solutions to challenges. Embrace not knowing everything. Date your books until you find one you love. Use small pockets of time. And find ways to track your progress. Okay. We've given you a lot of information today. Now it's time to put it into action. Every week, we give you a small practical challenge to work on.
And this week's challenge is, you guessed it, all about reading. We call it the 15-minute reading pledge. A pledge is a serious promise.
Here's how it works. For the next 7 days, we challenge you to read something in English for just 15 minutes every day. That's it, just 15 minutes.
The material is your choice. It can be a graded reader, a news website, a blog, a comic book, anything you want. The important thing is to do it every single day for a week.
The goal is to build a habit, to show yourself that you can find the time and that it can be an enjoyable part of your day.
And we want to hear from you. Go to our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you use, and tell us what you're reading. Use the hashtag Let's Master English Reading. Share a photo of your book, a link to the article you enjoyed, or just tell us about your experience.
We want to create a global community of English learners reading together. You can get recommendations from other learners and share your own.
So, that's the challenge, the 15-minute reading pledge. Are you in?
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Let's Master English. We hope you feel inspired and empowered to make reading a bigger part of your English learning journey.
Let's quickly recap the most important takeaways from today. 1. Reading is a superpower for learning vocabulary, grammar, and culture in a natural way. 2. Choose material that you genuinely enjoy and that is at the right level for you. Graded readers are your best friend when you start. 3. Read for pleasure and don't worry about understanding every single word. Consistency is more important than perfection. 4. Everyone's journey is different. Find what works for you, whether it's comic books, business articles, or romance novels. And don't forget to take our 15-minute reading pledge this week and share your progress with the hashtag Let's Master English Reading hashtag. We can't wait to see what you're all reading.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep reading.
Bye for now. That was great, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed reading the podcast script and learned a lot. David and Lara gave some fantastic advice, like choosing books you are interested in and reading for just 15 minutes every day. Remember, the goal is to have fun while you learn. Thank you for joining me today. Keep practicing, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.